It's hungry. Jordan, who's at the...
Writer-director Chad Archibald brings us It Feeds. And this is a 2025 horror movie. So what's the story of It Feeds? So it focuses on a mother and daughter kind of combo, and the mother works as a psychologist, but she also has some type of psychic ability where she is able to enter the mind of her subjects and kind of deal with the trauma in her mind. And this is a genetic disposition, so it's believed the daughter will kind of have this gift at some point as well. And it's kind of on the down low. She doesn't really want to advertise it because there is certain dangers that accompany this. One day a young girl kind of basically comes into their home asking for help, and the mother sees that there is some type of entity attached to this girl, even without kind of doing this psychic process. And she's initially reluctant to help, but the teenage daughter wants to help this young girl and decides to go alone, which causes all sorts of trouble. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's talk about It Feeds. This should be an advertisement for young teenage girls not doing what they are told and getting into so much trouble because of it. Okay, what works in this movie's favour? The movie actually feels like it has a reasonable production behind it. I've got to say it's quite a crisp and slick production. Obviously, we're not talking about a mainstream movie here, but nonetheless, I do think the production design here is actually kind of quite lush. I think this kind of creature, it kind of reminds you of like the demon from the original Insidious, but it has elements of kind of Stranger Things, kind of the upside down kind of vibe to it as well. But we go into these kind of dreamscapes, so to speak, and they all look very sort of, confused and sort of, like madness on screen ultimately. So I think the actual production design here is pretty strong, and the practical makeup involved in some of the kind of the more fantastical elements here, I've got to say, is strong too. It's all sort of achieved sort of practical, and they do a good job here of making some kind of gnarly creature effects and kind of wound effects and things like that, which I think is pretty good. Our main actress, who is this kind of psychologist, a character, I've got to say I think the acting was for the most part pretty strong. Maybe the characters weren't super well written, but the acting I think was particularly strong in this one. And I thought, I think we'll come on to it, but I think the main issue here is the script. But I've got to say I think the performances do the best they can with a somewhat of a clunky script, to be honest with you. The acting, as I say, is fine. The pacing is pretty good, and as I say, it kind of builds into a crescendo, and we have various kind of, gradually kind of building up the kind of the tension and some elements here from a kind of a human sort of antagonist as well, which I think kind of adds to the kind of the problems. And I really like the fact that this our protagonist, which is one bit of the writing I did like, was quite reluctant in regards to, she didn't want to get involved. I mean, she just basically saw the risks and said, no, that's not what we do here. I don't want to kind of get involved with that. And she really is, her hand is forced by her daughter's stupidity, and then she kind of has to get involved. So let's talk about what doesn't work. So I think the script here is really lacking, to be honest with you. Like, it's really not clear what this sort of psychic woman actually does. I mean, she works as a psychologist, and yet we see like an instance at the beginning where she's kind of like in someone's mind, sort of dealing with their trauma. But I'm thinking, well, what is that actually doing? I mean, what is that? How is this actually working? it's never really sort of explained. I mean, how does she do this, and like what is the end result? How does the patient benefit from this? You kind of like, okay, it's really vague in regards to what's actually happening, and it seems like this also allows her to see this demon. And I think, well, why? I mean, it seems like they're looking at kind of trauma in regards to, like, you know, some type of event that's happened in the past, yet somehow that same ability allows you to see like a parasitic demon. It seems like a real stretch. I mean, you could just do it. You just can just see it. And okay, why? Don't know. You know. As for the demon itself, what does it actually want? It seems to kind of want to feed off like people's energy. Is it sentient? Is it just kind of like an animal? It seems to be kind of sentient, but we never really know much about it, or kind of like what it wants outside of it seems to want to feed, but also it kind of, by its nature, it sort of ends up killing its victims. But if it dies, if the victim dies, then the thing will die. So it's for its benefit not to kill the victim. I mean, it's not like a kind of like a single-celled organism like a virus. It's like this is a creature or an entity that surely would have some self-preservation. We have a character played by Shawn Ashmore, who is the parent of the girl who kind of bursts in and stuff, and he has a kind of quite a dark story, and again, it's only just touched on. Like, he's doing some things in this movie which is pretty dark, and I don't feel like the movie gave the character the opportunity to try and justify what he was doing, because he sort of sees it as he's doing the right thing, but the movie doesn't really kind of like get him to, obviously he's not, but he's kind of like, he thinks he is, but like, why does he think that? What, you know, when the balance, it'll, you know, we needed a little bit more. It kind of like, it just sort of says, yeah, well, he thinks he's doing the right thing. He's doing lots of bad stuff. Just deal with it, basically. And what happened to his kind of character, it doesn't really kind of like go into it. And like the police, they're completely inept. There is some like scenes here where it almost is like comedy police. There's a scene towards the end of the movie where our main character enters the kind of the mind space of this creature, and for some reason she kind of gets a change of wardrobe into this kind of goth-looking costume, and complete with a full makeover. Don't know why, don't know what the relevance was, and there just happens to be like lots of kind of melee weapons just lying around handily for our character to use. This is what you call sloppy writing. Then we have these kind of like characters that just are really kind of quite dislikable. The teenage girl, and I guess you would say this is the daughter we're talking about now, the daughter of this psychic. She's 17, and ultimately she is like the catalyst for causing all these problems. And you know, the mother at the beginning says like, you have to stick to these rules. She's like, nah, don't want to do that. I want to go off and do my own thing. And yet I felt like her irresponsibility was ultimately has caused a lot, you know, a lot of problems and even death to some people. But she's never like, you know, admonished about it or anything like that. And just kind of like, then we have this other friend who is like comically stupid, like this female friend called Agatha, who's just like comically like idiotic. So, you know, the movie's a real mixed bag. The writing is poor here, I have to say, but the visual style and the kind of like the actual movie has some interesting moments and some visually kind of exciting stuff that happens on screen, and some fairly good performances. And even I would say the direction here is actually strong. It's just the writing. So Ched Archibald, the writer-director, I feel, you know, his direction is solid, but his writing needs work. I mean, I think had this been written from someone else's script, or at least another script writer on it, maybe the script here would have been tighter. But as it stands at the moment, I found the movie really messy. But visually very interesting, and as I say, and some interesting characters. Even the kind of the teenage daughter, who is ultimately, as I say, the unwilling cause of all these problems, still is a somewhat of an interesting sort of character and well played. And I guess you can say, well, teenagers, they're just like, do what they want. So, you know, there is that, but the movie just didn't do the work, I think, to kind of like flesh that out. So it's a 5 out of 10 for me. It's worth a watch if you don't mind somewhat of a kind of a choppy script here. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to you next time. Bye for now.